Coming up on Arirang News. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un arrives in Russia where he is due to meet his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. A possible summit place, Vostochny Space Center in Russia's Far East as his train reportedly heads north away from Vladivostok. South Korean President Yoon says he'll actively push to hold a trilateral summit with China and Japan, something which hasn't been convened since 2019. This with Chinese Premier and Japanese Prime Minister also expressing their support during the ASEAN and G20 summits. The death toll from one of Morocco's deadliest earthquakes reaches close to 3,000. To support the quake-stricken country, Seoul has offered medical assistance as well as $2 million worth of disaster relief. Good evening, it's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. With the Kim-Putin summit expected sooner rather than later, the North Korean leader's heavily armored train full of military top brass and the regime's leader crossed into Russia this morning. Now we're learning it's moving northward rather than towards Vladivostok. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are widely anticipated to hold a summit in the Russian spaceport Vostochny Cosmodrome. Citing a Russian government source, Kyodo News on Tuesday reported that the two are set to meet at the spaceport before visiting a Russian fighter jet manufacturing plant located near the Khabarovsk region. Speaking at the Eastern Economic Forum on Tuesday, Putin himself announced plans to visit the spaceport. The Kremlin earlier announced that the summit would take place within the coming days. In line with such speculations, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un seems to be moving north instead of heading to Vladivostok, which many anticipated would be where he meets Putin. During the summit, the two leaders are expected to discuss an arms deal. This is highly likely considering that a number of military personnel are on the trip, including the regime's two top military officials, Lee Byung-chul and Park Jung-cheon.
We are closely watching whether the two will negotiate arms trade or technology transfers.
Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Moscow's deputy foreign minister said humanitarian aid to North Korea may be discussed. Russia also hinted at discussing UN sanctions imposed on the regime. This comes as there are growing concerns that Moscow would violate UNSC resolutions that prohibit any arms trade with North Korea. This trip to Russia is Kim's first international trip since the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced North Korea to close its borders for more than 3 years. It also marks Kim and Putin's second summit after the first in 2019. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Unlike when Kim and Putin in Russia met 4 years ago, now there's a war going on in Ukraine. Washington warns against any possible arms deal between North Korea and Russia. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji explains what this could mean for geopolitics.
Just like his first trip to Russia in 2019, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un chose to travel by rail using his personal armored train to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. But the war in Ukraine has turned the tables and things have changed since their last summit 4 years ago. The meeting in April 2019 took place just 2 months after the nuclear summit between Kim and former US President Donald Trump ended in failure without an agreement. North Korea was desperately looking for a diplomatic lifeline, as it had been under UN sanctions for its nuclear and ballistic missile program since 2006. But now it is Putin who's reaching out to Kim for help, as Russia is completely isolated on the global stage and it needs weapons for the war in Ukraine. Also, unlike in 2019, Kim was joined by his top two military officials, Lee Byung-chul and Park Jung-cheon, which implies that their talks will likely be focused on the military front. He was also joined by Park Tae-sung and Kim Myung-sik, key officials in charge of securing technologies needed for the regime's satellites and nuclear-powered submarines, as well as Cho Chun-yong, the director of the Munitions Industry Department, who assisted Kim during his recent visits to a munitions factory and missile plant. During his 12 years in power, Kim rarely made foreign trips, and the closer bond between North Korea and Russia appears to have been driven by Putin's need for weapons and Kim's efforts to break out of diplomatic isolation to form a united front against the West. Amid concerns that this could possibly extend the Ukraine war, the U.S. State Department said Monday local time that it will not hesitate to impose sanctions. It warned both countries that any transfer of arms from North Korea to Russia would be in violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions.
And we, of course, have aggressively enforced our sanctions against entities that fund Russia's war effort, and we will continue to enforce those sanctions and will not hesitate to impose new sanctions if appropriate.
Washington also urged the North to abide by its public commitment not to provide or sell weapons to Russia. In November last year, North Korea said it has never had arms dealings with Russia and has no plans to do so in the future. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol says he'll actively work to host a Seoul-Beijing-Tokyo trilateral summit, something which hasn't been convened in years. This after meeting the Chinese premier and Japanese prime minister at the recent ASEAN and G20 summits. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday expressed his eagerness to push for a trilateral summit with Japan and China at the earliest opportunity. Such a summit has not happened since 2019, with the last one happening in China.
이번 순방 기간에 리창 총리와 기시다 총리는 한중일 정상회의 재개에 대한 지지 의사를 표명하였습니다. 한국은 의장국으로서 한중일 정상회의 개최를 적극 추진해 나갈 것입니다.
The comments came at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday as he also called on China, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, to have a bigger role in dealing with North Korea's provocative behaviors. He also reflected on his trip to ASEAN and G20 summits. The president underscored the importance of diplomacy focused on the economy as the nation has a heavy foreign dependency. He named South Korea's agreement to cooperate in the space industry with India as one of key takeaways, saying that India is ahead in terms of space technology and South Korea is ahead in terms of manufacturing. The two countries can see a synergy effect in this sector. He also reiterated that 22 MOUs were signed with Indonesia for natural resources, electric vehicles, and nuclear energy.
지난주 순방으로 제 취임 이후 약 1년 4개월 동안 전 세계 50여 개 국가의 정상들과 만나 양자회담을 가졌습니다. 앞으로 재임 중에 대한민국 국민과 기업이 진출해 있는 모든 나라의 정상들과 만나고 국민과 기업을 뒷받침할 것입니다.
Spokesperson Lee Do-woon said that during the cabinet meeting, President Yoon called for his ministers to come up with a checklist in terms of cooperation with other countries. Yoon also says it's important to know what to request from his counterparts at bilateral meetings.
President Yoon explained that he met with Korean businesses to hear about their challenges in foreign countries. He then discussed these issues with other leaders during summits, convincing some of them to remove unnecessary regulations that hinder Korean businesses. In some cases, these leaders immediately instructed their ministers to address the concerns.
President Yoon also said that with the cooperation between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo strengthening and even expanding into the advanced technology sector, more economic opportunities are opening up. And in the global diplomacy, this has given South Korea the opportunity to play a bigger role in the Indo-Pacific region. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The UN nuclear watchdog chief says activity has been detected at North Korea's Punggye-ri test site. In the meantime, a US-based monitoring group says that there could be a test firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile following the unveiling of what the regime claims as tactical nuclear attack submarine last week. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Lee Jae-myung has more.
Troubling signs of activity continue at North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site. That's according to the International Atomic Energy Agency's Director General Rafael Grossi, who says that Punggye-ri appears to be ready for a nuclear test. Monitoring nuclear programs in North Korea, Mr. Grossi said that there are indications of activity near Adit 3 and in the support area, and that any nuclear test would, quote, contravene UN Security Council resolutions and would be a cause for serious concern. Mr. Grossi also said that activity continues at the Yongbyon nuclear facility site and that the agency has observed increased construction at several locations there. He explained that there are signs that the 5-megawatt reactor is being operated and that activity at the radiochemical laboratory is consistent with possible waste treatment or maintenance work. Some buildings at the nuclear fuel rod fabrication plant have been renovated and others newly constructed. Meanwhile, Beyond Parallel, a project of the Washington-based Center for Strategic and International Studies, said Monday that Pyongyang may test-fire a submarine-launched ballistic missile using its recently revealed, quote, tactical nuclear submarine. It pointed out that the Hero Kim-Gunok submarine launched earlier this month is not a nuclear submarine as it's diesel-powered, not nuclear. It said that the new vessel seems to be a modified Soviet-era Romeo-class submarine, which North Korea imported from China in the 1970s and started to produce domestically. Beyond Parallel noted that the next step for Pyongyang is showing off the performance of this submarine, but when a test will take place is unclear. The report also underlined that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un might request submarine or SLBM requested technology from Russia during the summit with its Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, which may accelerate the regime's missile development. Lee Jae-myung, Arirang News.
Now to the latest in Morocco. The death toll there continues to rise to over 2,800, following one of the deadliest earthquakes to hit that country. South Korea's offer to provide medical assistance is among the many pledges of support flying in from around the world. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Following the strongest earthquake to hit Morocco in nearly a century, offers of disaster relief have been coming in from around the world, including South Korea. According to a representative from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Tuesday, Seoul has pledged to dispatch the Korea disaster relief team to provide medical assistance, as well as $2 million worth of humanitarian aid. While the offer has been communicated to the Moroccan government, local authorities have been slow to accept assistance as it claims it needs to coordinate aid based on the needs of the field. Currently, it has only accepted search and rescue teams from Spain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and the United Kingdom. The 6.8 magnitude earthquake, which hit the center of the country on Friday, has resulted in a death toll of more than 2,800 as of Monday. The worst affected area is the province of Al Haouz, where nearly 1,500 people have died due to the fact that it's located at the foot of the Atlas Mountains and includes remote villages and settlements that have been challenging for rescuers to reach. 2,562 others have also been reported as injured. And with the golden time ticking down and rescuers struggling to get to the victims, there are fears the death toll could rise even further over the next several days. And with so many hard-to-reach areas, authorities have not yet issued any estimates for the number of people missing. The World Health Organization said more than 300,000 people have been affected by the earthquake. In addition to human casualties, historical sites such as the Tinmel Mosque and Marrakesh's Old City has been severely damaged from the tremors. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
As we just saw, the earthquake that turned villages in Morocco into rubble was one of the worst to ever hit the country. Our Yoon explains the cause and how to minimize damage from any potential earthquakes in the future.
A rare massive earthquake that hit Morocco was the deadliest to strike the North African country in 120 years. The magnitude 6.8 quake, which sent people scrambling out of their beds in terror and turned villages into rubble last Friday night, left thousands dead and injured, with the death toll likely to rise farther. The epicenter of the quake that was felt all over the country was located 75 kilometers southwest of the city of Marrakesh, a mountainous rural area near the Atlas Mountains that was not usually known for active tumblers. So what exactly caused it?
The mechanism of the Morocco quake was different from other earthquakes. It occurred as tectonic plates under Africa and Eurasia collided with a phenomenon called reverse fault, where the edge of the rock on one side of a fault slips under the other.
During the earthquake, the edge that lies towards the mountain slid over the other, pushing the mountain side up, a knock-on consequence of the tension between the African and Eurasia plates that built up over time. As the quake occurred in a mountainous area, damage was more extensive due to landslides. One of the reasons behind the extensive damage was the construction quality of the buildings. According to Reuters, rescuers said the traditional mud brick houses crumbled, reducing the chances of finding survivors.
After structural standards are met, the government should focus on early earthquake alerts. Utilizing seismological observations can make a big difference by providing an initial warning. Individuals should also remember to stay in a building while there's still movement and to quickly find a safe way out when it stops.
Experts also added that while Morocco's earthquake was hard to predict, governments need to invest in buildings designed to withstand earthquakes in order to minimize damage and casualties despite the cost. Yoon, Arirang News.
The Korean government dismisses concerns over an expected fall in seafood consumption after Japan released wastewater from its crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant. In a daily briefing today, Vice Oceans and Fisheries Minister Park Sung-hoon said seafood sales at the country's 3 major supermarket chains increased more than 11% from August 28th to September 3rd from the week before. That's the week that Japan began to release the wastewater starting August 24th. Park added that retail stores within Noryangjin Fisheries Wholesale Market, one of the largest domestic seafood markets, saw around a 17% increase in sales during the same period. Amid a global economic slowdown, signs of growth and profitability of South Korean companies worsened in the second quarter of this year. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the sales of more than 22,000 companies from April to June fell 4.3% on year. This is the biggest drop since the second quarter of 2020, when there was some 10% on-year decrease. The decline is largely attributed to sluggish recovery in the IT sector and a decline in export prices for semiconductors and petroleum products. However, the debt ratio decreased by 4.2 percentage points in the second quarter compared to the first this year, as dividend payments have been made. The Korean government and the ruling party are pushing to change a law mandating the Office of Education submit its opinion on any child abuse case. They say it's to better protect teachers from malicious allegations of child abuse amid a number of shocking suicides from related stress. Our political correspondent Kim Jung-sil reports.
The government and lawmakers are rushing to protect school teachers here in South Korea. On Tuesday morning, the government and the ruling People Power Party met to discuss amending laws to better protect teachers' authority. They discussed ways to counter one of the most serious issues, unreasonable child abuse reports by parents.
We have decided to establish a new regulation requiring the school superintendent to submit a mandatory opinion to the investigative body. And the investigative parties must take the opinion into consideration and put it in the record during the investigation.
With the opinion submitted by the Office of Education that oversees local schools, officials say teachers will have an authoritative body giving more objective opinions regarding the incident.
Over the past decade, teachers have been suffering from the collapsed balance between students' human rights and teachers' rights. Teachers are demanding one thing in particular. They are requesting the law to protect legitimate educational guidance from indiscriminate reports of child abuse.
The movement from the government and lawmakers has been fueled by the recent cases of several school teachers taking their own lives. South Korean media reported many of the teachers suffered from malicious complaints for years in some cases, and that they were under a lot of stress when facing police investigations. Physical punishment has been basically banned in schools in South Korea since 2012, but unreasonable reports of, quote, emotional abuse have put teachers in difficult situations when disciplining students. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
The prosecution's questioning of main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung was cut short on Tuesday, ending after less than 2 hours. This was the second time in less than a week for Yi to be grilled by prosecutors. Yi, who's been on hunger strike for nearly 2 weeks, appeared at the Suwon District Prosecutor's office to face allegations of third-party bribery. The prosecution suspect Yi approved or condoned Sangbangul Group transferring $8 million to North Korea in 2019, with some of the money being intended to facilitate his planned visit to Pyongyang. Yi has consistently denied the accusations. DP spokesperson Kim Han-gyu told reporters that this will potentially be Yi's last appearance at the prosecution before either having the allegations dropped or, more likely, facing an arrest warrant request sometime next week. If an arrest warrant is issued for Yi, a motion requesting consent for arrest will be put to a vote at the National Assembly. Now, only 11 days to go now until the start of the Hangzhou Asian Games. Today, Team Korea gathered for an official launching of the national team. South Korea is sending a record number of over 1,100 athletes and team officials to the Games this time. Our Song Yoo-jin reports.
With just a little over a week left until the Hangzhou Asian Games begin, Team Korea gathered on Tuesday for an inaugural ceremony. While athletes for each sport have already been selected, this ceremony marks the official launching of the national team. There, athletes showed their determination and competitive spirit, from the youngest to the oldest.
I'm honored to be the youngest on the national team, but I don't want to stop here. I want to win a medal and promote Korean chess to the world.
Competing in the Asian Games is like a surprise gift to me. I'm eager to show everything I've prepared until now.
More than 700 athletes and coaching staff participated in the ceremony. Park Bo-gyun, South Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, delivered President Yoon Suk-yeol's message that the athletes' unwavering determination and passion would undoubtedly resonate with the Korean people and bring them joy. Team Korea, in return, promised to do their best.
We hope that the sweats and toil of our athletes won't be defined by the colour of medals. It would be great if those at home find joy in athletes giving their all and leaving it all out there. We also hope that lesser-known sports can gain more recognition.
South Korea is sending a record number of 11,140 athletes and team officials in 39 sports to the 16-day Games. The goal is to rank third out of 45 participating countries in the overall medal ranking, as it did 5 years ago in Jakarta. As anticipation builds and excitement mounts, all that's left now is Team Korea to showcase its skills and dedication. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Then seasonable heat will start to subside. Temperatures will get close to the seasonal norms tomorrow. For Seoul, highs will be topping out at 27 degrees Celsius, which is about the seasonal average. Other regions such as Andong and Changsu will be cooler than the seasonal norms. And light rainfall will be dropping for the daytime. For eastern Gangwon-do province and Jeju Island, light rain is in the forecast. The amount of rainfall won't be too much, with about 5 to 20 millimeters. Scattered outbreaks of rain are in store for other inland regions as well. Partly cloudy to overcast skies will dominate for the morning hours. Seoul, Gwangju, and Daegu will be starting off at 22 degrees. The entire nation will see daytime highs dropping below the 30-degree mark. Seoul will get up to 27, Daejeon 25, Daegu and Gyeongju will be topping out at 27 degrees. A low-pressure system will enter the country this weekend. In between Friday and Saturday, another round of nationwide rain is in the forecast. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this Tuesday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Good night.